Sorry, everybody, I got knocked off. So let me share my screen again. And what I was saying, talking about learning a foreign language. And if I remember, I was telling you how when I was a kid, I had this fantastic French teacher. So she wanted to know, how do we spell we? I don't know after how many months of just sitting there listening. And everybody, some people spell we W-E, other people W-E, W-E-E. Other people wanted to be fancy and they spelled it W-E-I. And none of them were correct. And she says, this is your first lesson in uh, beginning to communicate in a foreign language. She says, because French is a foreign language. French is not English. The way we spell we in English makes sense, makes common sense to people who speak English, but it has nothing to do with the way a French person thinks, rationalize, sees reality. And then she spelled we, O-U-I. And we were like, what? How do you get we from that? That's not we. That's, oh, yeah. And she started laughing. She said, didn't you just hear me? Didn't you hear me? French is not English. French is its own language, its own culture, its own way of looking at whatever it looks at. It's a reflection of people who see reality, sometimes very much alike your reality, other times very much unlike your reality. And she said, that is what it means to learn a foreign language. You are trying to get into the head of, into the core of how people who are not you, who are not native to you, who are foreign to you, maybe the only thing you have in common is that you're both human beings, and that's it. How do they communicate with other people like them or unlike them in order to get what they have inside out? And I remember thinking, I never thought of a foreign language like that. I never realized it was that. I thought, my 14-year-old mind thought, it's just exchanging words. I say tomato, you say tomato. I say potato, you say potato. That's it. And that class taught me more than any other experience I've ever had, except for hands-on experience, that to learn a foreign language is a very complicated process, a very complex process. You who think you you think one way, see life one way, communicate one way. That one way is the way you have been taught. It's not something that you were born with. The ability to do all that, yes, I think you're born with, but the actual doing of that, you're taught. That's why bilingual children learn how to speak much later. But when they learn how to speak, but once they speak, they're able to communicate smoothly without any problems in both languages. Multilingual children, the same thing. Because their little brains, their young brains are absorbing everything. And somehow it puts things in categories. Over here is what your father says, and he's only speaking to you in Mandarin. Over here is what your mother says, and she's only speaking to you in English. Over here is what your grandparents say, and they only speak to you in Cantonese. Over here is what your other grandparents say, and they only speak to you in Swahili. And then somehow, and that part, because I'm not a brain surgeon, I never studied, the brain or anything, but somehow your brain is able to keep all that. It takes time. So when you were learning to speak, let's say Spanish, French, German, whatever, Swahili, whatever, you should take that in consideration. You are trying to get into the core of another language. into another way of communication, into the way, another history, another culture, because language reflects all that without actually having lived that. That is very difficult. That is very difficult. And if you don't have an excellent guide, teacher, but I say the teacher is only a guide, an excellent guide, you'll never learn, or you'll learn very badly, or you will learn very badly. So foreign and language are two words. Let me put language, because it's not that it's language, it's that it's foreign. That's the most important thing. Let me make this red. And then let me bold it. It's that it's foreign, that all of this is not native to you. It's that it's foreign. That's what's the most important thing. Because language, most of us already speak, or most of us already understand a language by the time we get about, I don't know when children begin to learn or understand, maybe by the time we're 1.5, 9 months, I don't know. Okay, but that is foreign. And the language is a means of communication. And that in itself is packed with a lot of information. Okay, now, when you are learning a language, I think there's things you should take in consideration. You should take in consideration culture. Please don't laugh at my typing. History. Social norms. Right, etc. These are all things that you have to take in consideration. And they may be close to yours or not so close. Do you know when Americans go to live in the United Kingdom, or when people from the United Kingdom come to live here, they don't have to learn another language per se, because we both speak, they speak and we speak English. But they do have to learn how English is navigated in the United States. Now, they have an advantage because there's a lot of American movies and TV shows and social media. They pick it up. We, on the other hand, because mostly the English you see when you do see it, and when you do hear it, it's American versus British. We, on the other hand, have to learn more about how the British express themselves, especially if you're talking about the people in Northern Ireland, when you're talking about the Scots, when you're talking about the Welsh, they express themselves differently than Americans. They use English, and sometimes they may even put their own native languages there, but it's different. And you know what's different? Their gestures, the way they look at you and their gestures, those are different. Those are culture connected, history connected, social norms. And our history, our culture, our social norms are different. The same thing when you go to, let's say, Nigeria, or you go to Ghana, or you go to Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. Many of the people there speak their own native languages and also English, but they do it very differently than Americans do. Let's look at it. Even if you have the culture, the history, the social norms in general in common, you can talk to someone who speaks your own language, but grows up differently, very differently, and it's different. Now that could be place, race, right? Or class. People of different classes speak differently, right? Someone who's very rich, who's never had to worry about making a living, versus someone who's poor and has to worry about making a living minute by minute. No matter what they've been taught in school, they don't think the same. Their gestures aren't the same. I would say their social norms aren't the same. People who live in a warmer part of the United States, people who live in a colder part, all those things play a part. But now we're going to get into language, right? And we have to stop that because what I wanted to get into is foreign language and what certain words that you need to know. One word, one particular word that you have to know when you are talking about learning another language is the concept of regular. I'm going to capitalize it all. Versus irregular. This is a concept that a lot of people don't understand and they're never even taught. Now, if you speak a Latin-based language, you know what the word means, regular, right? Irregular. And the ear tells you, if you know anything about prefixes and suffixes, there we go. And let's make this red. Tells you anything, if you know anything about prefixes, suffixes, it basically means follow the rule or follow the pattern, versus the ear means not follows the rule, not follows the pattern. Right? And that's all. Regular means you teach the rule, and this particular word follows the rule or follows the pattern. Versus irregular means you teach the rule, and this particular word does not follow the rule, and it does not follow the pattern. That's a very necessary concept to understand when you first learn a language and all the way through. Eventually, it becomes part of yourself. You have to ask yourself, oh, was that regular or irregular? Right? And if it's regular, people normally don't say anything. It's when it's irregular. I'm going to give an example in English, and I'm going to give an example in Spanish. Okay, so in English, regular versus irregular. The word dog, okay, hold on, is regular. I don't have to capitalize all this, but I'll do it. The word, okay, it's regular. So here's the rule. If the word ends in all alphabet except for, let's say, S, right? S, your S, right? All you do to pluralize is add an S. So one dog, two dogs. That's it. But if you have the word dish, okay, so I should say SSH. As I go on, I'll remember more exceptions, okay? All right, hold on. Let me do it down here, because otherwise it's going to be red. It might be the red down here too. Yes, it doesn't matter. If you have the word dish, let me make this. Okay. And you want to pluralize that. Okay, you want to pluralize the word dish. Then According to the rule, you just can't say this. You have to say dish, and then you add in ES. And that ES allows you to divide it into 2 syllables rather than 1 syllable. So it's dish, dishes. Because otherwise it's very difficult to go dish. You never stop. So what's the rule? If it ends in, let's say, S, CH, SH, oh, there might be a couple more soft sounds. Instead of adding S, you add, do that again, you add ES. I'm gonna bold it. I'm gonna bold it. There we go. So the ES is not an exception to the rule. There's a rule that it tells you when, that rule tells you when to add the ES. But there is no rule that tells you, for example, let me just get this. There is no rule that tells you, for example, when you have, let me go back to the black, when you have child, how to make it into plural. It's not childs. It's not child this. It's completely irregular. It's children. And how do you know? Because I just told you. Or maybe if you had known before because someone had told you before. But you couldn't have guessed it because it's irregular. It does not follow the rule. The same way with people here. Foot. Whoop. It's not foots. There's no ES. It's feet. How do you know? Because I just told you. That's it. Because I just told you. Tape is running, video is running a little bit long. So I'm going to come back with the other video because we're talking about learning a foreign language. And we're going to look at how do you do the same thing but this time it's Spanish rather than English. And here we're looking at nouns. Now we're going to be looking at, I'll do the same thing, but I'll do the same thing with verbs in Spanish. Looking at a verb tense, when it's regular and when it's irregular. So this is Kerala Ficklin at Kerala Ficklin McLean. And the website is welcome, WYLCOME.com. We're talking about, rather than cards, we're talking about what does it mean to learn a foreign language. And this is a continuation of video 1, which we're still in the pandemic. Still things don't run perfectly. Well, nothing ever runs perfectly, but and I was cut off. So it's a continuation. So when I'm back, we're going to look at the same concept of regular and irregular, but in Spanish. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to say thank you very much. You have a good day and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.